All right, well, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about some of the benefits of participation through youth sport and sport as a whole, and not just necessarily focusing on the youth. And that's what you'll kind of see. So we've been talking up to this point about some of the, using sport as development and the different elements of development. We'll kind of build on that and as looking at this benefit side of it. Okay, so this is RSM 308. Recreational sport programming, and so that's what we'll be talking about today. So as we look at the developmental approach, I pose this question to you, or these two questions to you. At what age does active participation in organized sport typically begin? So think about yourself. When did you start participating in sport? Probably a lot of you started younger than I did. I know that the first thing that I could compete in or start working at in sport was Little League Baseball. And Little League Baseball started at 7 years old. The year after that, they went back to 6 years old. But there was no such thing as T-ball at the time. There was no such thing as coach pitch or even machine pitch. We started with us pitching to each other. And that was at 7 when, the kids, when we were developmentally able to pitch the ball and so forth. But a lot of you probably laugh at that now because, you started at a much younger age, and a lot of other sports as well. My other question here is, when does it end? When does sport end? And so, we're seeing, as I just mentioned, we're seeing sports starting at a younger age. I know Conway does a thing now for 3 and 4 year olds with soccer. But when does it get to that point where we don't need to have sport anymore and participation in sport ends? And we're seeing people compete in sport a lot longer and participate in sport, not necessarily competing at a high level, but they're still participating, and that's the key that we got to keep remembering: participation. It's not about the commercialization of it. It's not about that high level of competition. It's about participation, and so we're seeing people participate in sport longer and longer, and people picking up different sports at an older age, and so they can still participate. Okay. And so considering the life stages, and these are some of the common life stages that your life will be broken down to, and everybody's life is broken down to. You have those infant and toddler years. So is there things that we can do to reach young people? This great example up here up in the top corner with the swim lessons. And it's not really even lessons, it's just getting acclimated to water and trying to get children and adults acclimated to water. And a lot of times those type of activities are built on the child and a parent, guardian, somebody that they trust in that combination. And then you get into those early childhood, and again, part of it is just getting used to manipulating your body, manipulating equipment by using your body. So some things like these tennis lessons, it's both a combination. Okay, we can use tennis as a means to help not only teach discipline and teach body movements and how to control your body, but you also are getting into some skill, but the main emphasis is just getting that body moving in the direction that they want to. 6 to 12, now we're starting to learn, okay, we're going a step further, we're learning the rules a little bit deeper, we're actually applying those rules in a game type situation where you're getting more and better skill development. Again, it depends upon what your goals are, but that's kind of the direction that sport takes. But the other thing to keep in mind, both these early childhood and childhood, it's participation. Get them moving, get their heart rate up, get them working on their legs and arms, you know, because of those benefits that we'll talk about here in a little bit with the physical side of it. Okay, but then you're also, don't forget those other aspects of it, you know, socialization and you know, the ability to be a part of a team and the ability to understand and apply rules and apply those in a competitive situation. Adolescence becomes what happens with a lot of our focus in sport. It becomes more about achievement, more about who has the best skills, competing at a higher level. But there's still groups of adolescents that want to participate, but their opportunities start becoming limited. You know, who got to compete in middle school, high school, sport? It was those high achievers. You know, people get cut from teams. What do they do if they still want to participate? A lot of times it's very limited, and we see the numbers drop off of participation at that point. Even though some of them still want to participate, they don't have the outlets to do so in a more formal way. They may do it in an informal way, which is fine, and we got to keep that in mind as well. Young adults, 20 to 39. At this point, we see an even greater drop-off of participation. Why? Because now we're in a life stage where it stops becoming necessarily about us, because we got a job now. We have to work. We also have to probably take care of family at this point in time. A lot of people, this is when they, you know, get married, have children, and now it becomes, you know, more of an issue of handling all these other issues in your life and not necessarily being able to focus on you as much. Okay, so we see numbers drop off. Adult, 40 to 65. Now you're getting into, you know, yeah, it's the older side of adulthood, but, you know, now children are starting to grow up. You have some, again, influx of a little bit more free time to choose what you want to do, and so there's becomes more opportunities for it with time. Now, what happens is the body able to maintain it? And yes, it can. Do you run into some challenges? Sure, but it does. We do need to think about this group when we're applying. You know, it's not just the bingo age anymore. With getting up to that 65, they want to still in this group of senior adults want to still participate and compete. Okay? And then as you get into that older 66, same thing. They're not the bingo crowd anymore. They want to participate. They want to have things to do. Okay? And so consider that in those life stages. And we still in the adult, young adult, senior, we got to remember there's still a lot of great health, socialization elements to it that sport provides. What are some of the benefits of sport participation? Think about, you know, you've probably heard throughout a lot about physical activity and all the benefits of physical activity. Do those apply to sport? And is it just about the physical side of it? And hopefully you say no and have an understanding that no, and we'll talk about some of them. And as we move forward, are these age specific? Are any of these benefits age specific? Okay, and what benefits are most likely to be important to different age groups? So in this developmental domains, you know, kind of think about what we talked about in leadership and the three levels three levels of learning, basically. And you have your physical side of it. We call it psychomotor in there, right? We want to develop physically, whether it's learning how to control your body at that young age, or making sure that you keep your body doing what it's supposed to be doing and maintaining that physical level of fitness and because a lot of the challenges you run into in seniors become because they're not physically active. They've lost muscle tone, they've lost balance, and in sport, physical activity allows us to keep that up. Cognitive and staying sharp intellectually, okay, understanding the mental aspect and learning, okay, an important important realm. Affective, the emotions, and learning the discipline with the emotions, and learning how to, again, be a good with sportsmanship and those type of things. The social side of it, going outside what we've talked about previously, but we have to think about the social aspect of and the developmental social side. Are we teaching young people how to be, good with interaction with other people? And then sometimes when we get into those older age groups, they're coming out and participating just because they want that social aspect. We've seen an explosion in some sports like kickball. Kickball's it doesn't take a whole lot of great physical skills, but what does it do? It brings people together so they can play on a team and interact with others. And it's really popular with that young adult to adult because it's more about the interaction and the social side of it rather than necessarily the sports side of it. Okay. And you'll see the same thing if you've seen pickleball. Pickleball is good. There's definitely a physical side of it, but a lot of it becomes that camaraderie and the being part of the club and participating in tournaments and interacting with each other. It's a whole interesting phenomenon. And then we can also throw in the spiritual side of it. And kind of understanding, big thing with spiritual, doesn't necessarily have to necessarily do with religion, but the big side is understanding that there's something bigger out there than us. And losing the focus on an individual to a group and a larger calling. Okay. So developmental concerns and benefits. So kind of double-edged sword. There's going to be these benefits, but then they also lead into concerns because we're not necessarily meeting them. People aren't necessarily taking advantage of these benefits. So we know the physical activity. And we'll talk a little bit about this here in a few minutes, but there's a physical activity, getting out, moving the body, is shown to have great health benefits to it. Getting your heart rate up, which decreases blood pressure. Helps your body function right, particularly your heart when you're moving, right? And keeping your muscles sharp and in tone helps with balance and falls being such a big problem with seniors. Obesity. So many conditions come back to obesity, heart disease, stroke, all come back to diabetes. Adult onset diabetes comes back to obesity, and they cause problems with our health. Okay? But staying active and staying moving helps to reduce that. And so that's part of what we have to do a lot of times is keep in mind those physical benefits and trying to keep people physically active. And it's a challenge because our population likes to be, or is kind of moved towards being sedentary. Juvenile crime. Research shows that, when youth and young people are used are doing things in a positive manner like sport, they're less likely to commit crime. They're less likely to pursue risky behavior if they're being involved in sport. It was always the big thing is it's cheaper to get youth involved in sport than it is to put them in jail. Okay, so that's kind of one of our focuses, to get them involved, get them active. The positive youth developments that we talked about and those outcomes that we've been harping on kind of throughout our time together. Character and building up of our ethics and pro-social behavior, our morality. Spending, economic impacts. We'll talk about some of those economic impacts that sport has on our community. Property values and increasing property values in the area because people want to move into the area because of sport, which is an interesting phenomenon. People want to be a part of a winning program or be a part of a winning community, and so property values go up. And then community building. People are going to build the facilities to keep up with the athletic program, and then helps to add to the quality of life, the property values, and the standard of living. All right, I'm going to stop here and we'll pick up some more of these benefits here in a second.